Hello everyone, and welcome back to my series on SolidWorks tutorials. In my last video, I showed you how to make cosmetic threads much like this one using cut sweeps, and I'd like to build on that just a little bit. This is actually going to build on everything we've learned in this video series so far, because if you notice, this one actually has 3 different threads starting 120 degrees away from each other. So it's going to require reference geometry, helixes, cut sweeps, all sorts of stuff. Everything that we've learned. Let's take a look and see how I made this part. I started out making a cylinder with Boss extrude, and the circle that I drew in my sketch is the major diameter of my thread. The thread is an 1¼ inch 6 Acme, and like I said, it's triple start. You can look up all the specifications for this, and the major diameter that I drew on this circle is right in the middle of the tolerance range for that particular thread. Before we get started, we're going to need to do a few things that are going to make our job easier in the future. And the very first thing I'm going to do is draw a center line right down the middle of my part. So I'm going to choose line. I'm going to just say the right plane. And I can draw this center line. Yep, that's active. I can draw this center line from my origin point down there, and I'll just snap it to a spot somewhere up there. This does not need to be defined as long as it snaps to 90 degrees and it's running right down the middle of our part. So now we have a center line, and we can base all of our reference geometry off of that center line. I can exit that sketch. I don't need to do anything else to it. Now we have to make some reference geometry. So I'm going to go to my Features tab, which is on the left-hand side of the screen. Then Reference Geometry is in the top middle of the screen, a little bit to the left of middle. And I hit my drop-down menu, and I choose Plane. I need to make a total of 3 planes for this. So the first one is actually going to be offset off this top face. And when I choose a face, it's going to choose the type of mate, the type of reference to that face that makes the most sense for the feature that you just chose. And in this case, it's offsetting it. It's also offsetting it to the last dimension that I put in there, which was for that other model. So that's handy. I've already got it a 1/2 inch above my face, so I can just hit my green check mark and we're done. Now I'm going to come back up to reference geometry. I'm going to choose plane again. And for my first reference surface, I'm going to choose this center line that I just added a bit ago. And this time I'm going to have a second reference surface. So I'm going to come up to my Feature Manager design tree. And in this case, I could choose either front plane or right plane for this, but I'll choose the right plane. And it's going to choose perpendicular right out the box for this, but I don't want that reference. I want it to actually be angled to that plane. And again, it defaults to the last thing I typed in, which is 240 degrees away from that plane surface. And that happens to be one of the angles that I need for this, so I'm going to hit my green check mark. Lastly, I'll go back up to reference geometry again. Choose plane one more time. Now it is defaulting to that plane that I just created because I did not escape from it. So all I need to do over here is double click on plane 2 and instead choose the reference or the center line. The reason we put that center line in there is so we could put these planes here. These planes have to be coincident to that center line so they run right through the middle of the part. Again, my second reference, I'm going to open my design tree. I'll choose my right plane again. I'll choose angle again, but this time I'm going to type in 120 degrees. That's fully defined. I can click my green check mark. And now, when we look at this, we've got 2 planes that are going off 120 degrees away from each other, and we also have our right plane that finishes up the trio. I'm going to save that real fast just so I don't lose any progress. The next thing we have to do is create the helixes that are going to be the path for this, this thread. And to do that, we need to have a point that they will emanate from, and that's going to be on this top plane. So I'm going to hit my sketch tab, I'm going to choose that plane. This is the one that's above the face at the end of the cylinder. Here I'm going to draw a circle that is equal to the minor diameter of our thread. Again, you can look up all these specifications, and the dimension that I'm going to plug in here is 1.05, which is middle of the road of the tolerance on that particular feature of the thread. Now that I have that circle, I can create one of my helices, helixi, I don't know what it would be. Anyway, I go to Features, I go to Curves, I choose Helix and Spiral, and it's going to build it off of the circle that I just made. It's also defaulting to exactly the same things that I put in for the other model. So let's run through those real fast. I've got it at pitch and revolution, constant pitch. The pitch in this case is half an inch because we have 6 TPI but 3 starts, which means that each revolution is going to travel half an inch in order to fit the 3 starts into that. So that's why the pitch is listed at half an inch. If I clicked reverse direction, it would just change the arrow or the direction that the helix goes. It would go up off the part. So I want to leave that checked. I did 6 revolutions to make sure that it goes all the way off the other side of the part. And again, it's defaulting to the last thing I typed in, which is 240 degrees for the start angle. And you can see that would start right at that plane right there, which is why we drew the plane. All right, so that's everything we need for this. We'll go ahead and click yes. Now we are going to repeat that 3 times. So we're going to sketch this, choose that plane. There we are. We'll have to redo this circle. Now I can go to Features, I can do my helix. It's going to build it off of that circle again. The only thing I'll need to change is the angle here. So I will have one starting at 0, one starting at 240, and one starting at 120. So now we can see we have 2 helixes moving in amongst themselves, but not intersecting. So one more time, we'll choose that plane. I don't think convert entities works. Normally you would be able to convert the circle that you drew on the other plane, but I think when I try to do this, it tries to convert the helix as well. Yeah, so I don't want to do that actually. I'm going to close out of that. So convert entities does not work. Instead, I will just redraw the circle. And dimension it. I only went that big because it made it easy to see where it was. There we go. And one last time, I can go to Features, Curves, Helix and Spiral, and this time I'm going to type in 120 degrees. So now we should have all 3 helices. I believe that is the term I've chosen to use. So all 3 helices going around this part, and you can see basically what path these will follow. All right. Let me go ahead and save it again because this has been a lot of work so far and I don't want to lose it. The next thing we're going to do is we're going to draw our thread profile. Need to be in Sketch. I'm going to choose Sketch. This time I'm going to choose my right plane. This is the one that corresponds with 0 degrees. And I'm going to come up here, get sort of in the vicinity of where it's going to be. I'll choose my line tool and I'll just start drawing. And I'm basically drawing the rough shape of an Acme thread. So now let me go ahead and dimension this. The width of the thread is actually mathematically tied to the pitch, and I've already looked all that up again, so I know that it should be 0.061783. There we go. The next thing I want to do is put a center line right through the middle of this, by the way. So I'm going to snap to the center point of that line, and I'll come off the edge so it doesn't try to snap to the center point of this one, which would make the center line angled. I'll go back into Smart Dimension, and I'll start dimensioning the angles first. So I know that from the center to the side is going to be half the angle of the thread, which is 14.5 degrees in this case. Now that is constrained, it's not going to move, so I can go from that side to that side and put in the full angle of the thread. And now we are almost done. The last thing I'm going to do is give it a length right here. I don't necessarily have to give it this length, but it won't be fully defined otherwise. And I'm going to just put in 100 thousandths. That 100 thousandths is going to just make it from the insertion point at the helix to just past the major diameter of the thread. So that way I'm not going to run into the other threads with this geometry, and I'm also not going to leave little bits of material on the major diameter that haven't been cut. Two more things to dimension. We need to make sure that that center line is the same distance from that face as the plane. So that was 1/2 inch above. And likewise, this line here needs to be dimensioned from the center line of the part, and that would be the minor diameter divided by 2. At this point, I have a couple of choices. I could go ahead and draw this exact same feature on those two reference planes that I created and attach them to their respective helices. That is how I did my first part, the one that I showed at the beginning of the video. And I gotta say, I found it a little bit confusing getting the right sketch to the right helix, because all you see when you're attaching all these things is the tree, and determining which one goes with which is a little funky. So I'm going to go ahead and do these sweeps one at a time. Also, in regards to that other geometry, you certainly could redraw this every single time, but you don't have to. You can take this sketch right here and you can turn it into a block, which lets you insert it elsewhere on the drawing. So let me show you what you need to do that. The first thing I'm going to do is come up to my SolidWorks icon so that I get this toolbar up here. And if I go to the View tab, there's Toolbars, and I can turn on the Blocks toolbar. It's going to open it on the left-hand side of the screen. There it is right there. Since I'm still in this sketch, this top icon is active. I can choose to make it a block, and I'm going to go ahead and click that, and I can just choose the face of that sketch. It's going to choose all of those lines. It lets me also choose the insertion point, which is where it will actually get inserted into the sketch, and I'm going to drag that up to the midpoint of this line. I'm also going to add the center line to it as well, because that's going to make it easier to dimension it and locate it onto the helix and onto the plane. So I can go ahead and click that, and now that block is active in this particular file. You can also save it right here, which I actually already have. You can save it to a folder and then insert it later into other files. In order to do the cut sweep, I have to exit my sketch. I'm going to go to Features. There is the Swept Cut. I'm going to choose that. It's choosing the last profile that I drew, and now it's asking for the curve that it's going to follow, and I'm going to go ahead and click the one that it's attached to. I get my preview, and we can zoom out. You can see it goes all the way down there. And let me zoom to fit here. Now when I click this, it's going to cut that one single thread. There we go. Looks a little funny right now. So let's go ahead and do the exact same things on the other ones. So tell you what, I'm going to go to my sketch tab, I'm going to click sketch, I'm going to click this reference plane right over here. It will make it normal to that. And it turned it sideways, which is not that big of a deal, but it does make it a little difficult here when I go to insert that block I just made. So I'm going to click that. We have our open block, and hey, there it is right there. So I'm going to insert it right over there. It doesn't have to be in a particular spot. And you can see I can actually insert it as many times as I wanted to. I don't need more than one copy, so I'm just going to hit the red X. Now we have the issue that my thread profile is rotated compared to my part. So we need to fix that, and we're going to come up to this box right up here. It says Move Entities, but if you click the drop down here, you can choose Rotate instead. You've also got Copy, Scale, and Stretch. So we're going to click Rotate. It's asking what entities to rotate. And you can actually click this is a left click and drag, and you can draw a box around the geometry that you want to highlight. So I can click that, it chooses the entire block, and you can choose a center of rotation, which I'm going to choose as my insertion point right here. And then it wants an angle. So it's 90 degrees off, so I would hit 90, right? Oops, that turned it the wrong way. It's almost like I knew that was going to happen. So I need to actually make that 270 degrees to flip it that way. Now we just need to activate Smart Dimension and locate it in 2 dimensions. We need to go from that face to the center line of the part, and that is a 1/2 inch in order to get it up to that plane. And then we also need the front line right there down to this center line. If I can get there, there we go. And that is going to be the minor diameter divided by 2 again, 1.05 divided by 2. And now that one's ready to go. So we can get out of dimension, we can exit the sketch, we can click off in the field to get it unhighlighted, and now when we go to features, the swept cut option is available. We can go to our tree and choose this sketch right there. That's the one we want, and we can choose this helix if my computer would catch up. Alright, so you can see from the preview that is going to miss that other thread. So let's go ahead and click our green check mark. Now we've got 2 out of the 3 threads, so only 1 more to do. And we're going to want to start this sketch on this plane over here. So one more time, we go to sketch, we'll choose that plane. It's going to do the exact same thing. It's going to rotate the part. I'll insert my block. It immediately knows it's block 1 because it's the only one. Now I'll click it right in there, click my red X. We'll have to move our entities again. We'll rotate our entities. And we'll choose that one. Center of rotation, same deal. That point right there. And we know that we need to do 270 degrees. And lastly, we dimension it just like we did the last time. There's a lot of repetition doing this, but the result is worth it. And 1.5 divided by 2. Puts it right at the end of the helix. we can exit our sketch, get to swept cut, choose that profile, choose that helix, and you can see once again it's going to miss the other two threads. So I'm going to zoom out so you can see it cut. And there we go. Let's go ahead and go up to our eye icon right up here, the hide icon. I'm going to hide our planes and I'm going to hide our curves. So now we only see the geometry, and if I click out in the field, that sketch goes away. And now we have our finished part. Hopefully you found this video helpful. If you did, please consider hitting the like and subscribe button down below. And if you have any questions about this or any other SolidWorks or machining topics, leave those down in the comments below. Thanks for watching. I'll see you next time.